Sparrow is the latest film from director Francis Lawrence, and it stars Jennifer Lawrence. They're reteaming after doing Hunger Games 2 through 4. It also stars Joel Edgerton and Matthias Schoenaerts. I hope I pronounced that right. I'm sorry if I got it wrong. But this movie focuses on the character of Dominika, who is a Russian ballerina who, after an accident, really doesn't know where to go in life until her uncle, played by Matthias, leads her to this Sparrow school, which she enlists in. And this school basically teaches everyone there how to use their bodies to get what they want from other people, which helps them transfer into more a spy's line of work, which is what Jennifer Lawrence starts to do. And eventually her character Dominika crosses paths with Joel Edgerton's character Nate Nash, who is an American spy for the CIA, and that's all I'll really say from there to keep the plot vague. I was interested to see this movie, not because I read the book. I didn't know the book existed. Apparently it's written by an actual American CIA operative, which is pretty cool, but I was not interested in this movie because of the book. I was more so interested because of the cast, and also because the director, Francis Lawrence, directed the Hunger Games 2 through 4. Now, Catching Fire I really loved, and then Mockingjay Part 1 and 2 are kind of the same for me, they're alright. I know Francis Lawrence has done other films besides the Hunger Games movies, but I just know him famously for Hunger Games, and since Jennifer Lawrence is also in this movie, I was very interested to see how this film would turn out, how they'd handle this kind of film, because it seemed like they were going to go for a very much more realistic kind of spy route. And a lot of people were for some reason drawing similarities to Atomic Blonde, and just disclaimer really quickly, this is nothing like Atomic Blonde. Even when I saw the trailer, I was like, this is definitely not an Atomic Blonde type vibe. Just because it's a spy movie led by a female does not make it Atomic Blonde. Atomic Blonde is much more focused on the action movie route, giving you fun action sequences that are gritty and stuff. Red Sparrow is very much so more interested in telling you straight up how it is, being a spy in this line of work and doing all the nasty, dirty stuff that comes with that. And that's one thing I really gotta commend this movie for, is that it does not hold back when it comes to the violence in this film. There's moments of that in this movie that had me cringing so much because it felt so real. The sound design is cranked up so you can hear every hit, every slice, and it's just after a while it gets pretty miserable, which I could not blame anyone for not liking this movie just because of just feeling miserable alone, because I could completely understand it. Because there's a lot of violent moments in this movie that I'm pretty sure not everyone will be used to. Of course, the people who thought this movie was going to be Atomic Blonde might just think, well, there will be a couple fun violence moments, there's no fun violence in this movie. There's 2 scenes in this movie that you could sort of kind of say are more movie type action scene, but at the same time the way it's helmed, the way they executed it, it doesn't really come across as movie. It just comes across as a realistic kind of violent scene. But at the same time, it doesn't come across like a Nicholas Winding Refn movie where he just does violence for the sake of violence and it's excessive and it doesn't need to be there. This movie, concerning the nature that Dominika is a spy in this dangerous line of work, these kind of violent things are just kind of bound to happen, as well as other sexual encounters that she faces that are also really disturbing to see, but at the same time, it works for the story and it works for the character, and it doesn't come across as glorification or being too excessive or just, I love violence, so here you go. It just feels natural to the film, which is something I really commend this film for. Also, what I really like about the movie is Jennifer Lawrence, how she handles it with her performance, because Dominika goes through quite a lot in this movie, but at the same time, Lawrence has that kind of performance where you can get attached to the more sentimental part of her, but at the same time, she performs it very strong. So you can sympathize with her, but she's also still strong and she's still going throughout the film, which I thought was very well done on their part. I also really like the scenes with her and Joel Edgerton. Both their characters are kind of a contrast between each other of the Russian spy of work and also the Americans, how they treat their spy work as well, and I thought that was really cool, and also just their performances in general, how their characters interacted with each other I thought was really well handled. And also Matthias Schoenaerts as Vanya, the uncle to Dominika. He is also very good in this film. He's the kind of character who's trying to be warm to his niece, but at the same time, he's kind of a creep, and he's not necessarily a great guy. So concerning that, the actor definitely had a lot on his plate playing this character, but I think he pulled it off very well. He was one of the most memorable parts of the film, like if you ask me. In fact, I think the entire supporting cast did very well, except for one, which was Mary Louise Parker, mainly because her character feels so out of place. And the character is important to the story, so it's not like she's just written in there for no reason. It's just that the performance just feels so out of nowhere because it's a little more comedic, and once she's in there, there's another character who starts telling jokes who was not telling jokes earlier. So it was a little weird, and it made me think, like, where did this humor come from? And I heard this somewhere, I'm not sure if it's entirely true, but I think I heard that they were trying to keep like a little light comedic tone going throughout to kind of contrast all the dark stuff, but they figured, like, let's just cut all that out. And if that's true, I think that's a very wise move, because the darker elements of this film are what's fitting most to the story, but you're still left with Mary Louise Parker, who's playing it up for comedy, and it just doesn't really fit. It just kind of sticks out. And this next part, I'll admit, is going to be a little tricky to talk about, mainly because the story for this film I thought was really good. There weren't any cringe lines of dialogue. The story pretty much had me hooked, and I wanted to see what would happen. And when the film was coming to a close, there were certain interesting things going on. But my main problem with the movie is its running time. It's like 2 hours, 20 minutes, I believe. It's a little too long, and you can definitely feel the movie taking its time for a lot of moments. And I'm not sure if that kind of pace was really required for this film, because I felt myself not really feeling engrossed with the movie. You know what I mean? Like with any other like mystery movie or like a spy movie, you want to feel engrossed. You want to feel like you're in the situation with the characters, so when certain revelations are made later, you're like, oh, that's amazing how they did that. But with this movie, when certain things were like being revealed later on in the movie, I just felt like, oh yeah, that felt like it happened ages ago. You know what I mean? So I didn't really feel like I was immersed with the story, like fully into it. It just felt like I was more like an outsider looking in. Like I'm locked out of the house and Red Sparrow's like inside in the living room, and I'm looking through like, hey, what's going on in there? And I'm seeing this interesting stuff, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. I wish I could be immersed in this though, because although the filmmaking is very well done, Francis Lawrence did a very good job with this, and also while the acting is very good, and although I did overall like the story, none of that really was strong enough to make me feel like I was completely immersed in the story. It never made me really feel like I was inside the head of Dominica, because that's kind of the point too, is that you're not really supposed to know what she's thinking a lot of times, which is fine, but it doesn't really help when it comes to trying to be immersed and trying to get to know this character more. And also because of that slow drag they had, there are moments where I was kind of like, okay, we can kind of pick it up a little bit more. And I feel like if I had to draw a comparison with Atomic Blonde, I pretty much will do it now. When it comes to the ending of that film, I felt like I was immersed enough into that film where when certain things were revealed, I was like, oh, that's pretty sweet. But when Red Sparrow, even though I think Red Sparrow's like a slightly better movie, I was still like at the end when certain things were being revealed, watching it being like, alright, that was pretty cool. But I didn't really have like this satisfactory feeling when I was watching it. It was just more of a, okay, that's cool. However, I still would recommend Red Sparrow. I think this movie is fairly solid. It's got some really great direction from Francis Lawrence, especially when it does get to those torture scenes, because that could have gone south in such a bad way, but I think Francis Lawrence had a good grasp on it. You really do feel those moments too, like the sound design and like the cinematography as well really captures it perfectly, and the score by James Newton Howard is so good here too. It honestly at a couple moments did send some chills down my spine. Jennifer Lawrence's performance is excellent, and Matthias Schoenaerts was a really good standout. Joel Edgerton was really good too, great acting, and it did have a script that I was fairly interested in watching, but one of the downsides to the script and also the pacing of the film is that it never really felt like I was invested with the film. It never really felt like I was getting into the minds of certain characters, which was kind of the intention, but at the same time, it didn't really help for this film. It's helped with other films before, but with a movie like this, there was that kind of feeling of, I don't feel like I'm really involved with the movie. I'm gonna give Red Sparrow a B. Besides the one Mary Louise Parker character that doesn't really matter too much because she's not in the movie a whole lot, and also besides the fact that I never really felt immersed with the film's story, I still genuinely enjoyed what they had to offer with the script. I also genuinely enjoyed a lot of the characters and the actors they had playing them, and the direction Francis Lawrence great job handling this film. I think it could have been a little bit better though, so that it could be like a really high recommended, but a solid recommendation is still a recommendation to you. But if you've seen Red Sparrow, leave it in the comments below what you thought of it, and this weekend I'm going to be reviewing Annihilation. Finally, I did see this film like a couple days ago on Tuesday, but I wanted to wait a few more days before turning on the camera, and now I think I'm confident enough to give you my opinion. So look out for that this weekend, and as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.